for the nerds. This is for the brainiacs. This what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back. You ain't gonna touch me. You not gonna do nothing. You are not above me. I bet you wish you was me. I know it, I know.
What's up, everybody? Great news. We broke the case. It's solved.
It's over.
We've done it. I can't believe it was right before our eyes this whole time. All it took was a little hard digging, some research, and here we are today, able to announce to the world the scandal is over.
Thank God.
Time's up, lockboxing. Back to the micros. I'm all in.
The triple range merge!
It's beautiful.
I came! Your play, lockboxing.
I can't call this.
Can't you?
He's a total maniac, but I've only got a flush draw.
You must go deeper.
The only thing I beat is another draw.
It's a shame you've used up your one time, yeah? How can you hope to beat me when you can't even beat the micros?
Don't move until you see it.
Wait a second.
Don't move until you see it.
There are a ton of other draws out there.
Let's see, 300,000 divided by $50. I'm gonna need 6,000 titties.
What if this isn't the triple range merge?
The merge is a lie.
What if it's just a shitty desperation bluff disguised as a triple range merge?
There is no spoon.
What's the matter, lockboxing? Strife and hunching at your tongue? Say something.
Call.
What a donkey! You really are the worst player in the world. You're calling me with just a jack-high flush draw?
Nope. I'm calling you with the best hand. You were right about me being a luck box. Wrong about me not beating the micros. I'm up about 350.
Good game.
Jack-high call. Did we really see that? That's amazing. That's one of the best calls I've ever seen. Completely owned.
Okay, all jokes aside, shout out to the micros, man. One of the best series that's ever been done in the poker content space. They knew, man. This is like the Simpsons thing, where they're just able to predict the future. Like maybe Robbi was on the triple range merge.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Or Garrett. I don't know. I don't even know who's who in this scenario. All I know is that it's about time we have a little bit of fun with this. It's been going on for far too long. So big shout out to the micros. Obviously, we're mostly kidding about this. We haven't cracked anything. If anything, I think we know less now than we did before. But we're going to try to get to the bottom of that today. So we have a great show ahead of you guys, or ahead for you guys today. We are going to obviously be updating everything that's happening in the world of cheating, including an unfortunate fallout with somebody that I have a lot of respect for outside of this scandal, Ian O'Hara, who seems to have run into some issues with some previous backing. We're also going to obviously update everything that is going on with the Hustler Jack 4 hand scandal, as well as welcome a special guest, Maanit Madan, later on in the show. He'll be joining us to give us his insight and expertise as far as RFID technology goes, maybe debunk some of the common theories that are out there as far as like how this cheating could have occurred, as well as maybe get a little bit of credence to the vulnerabilities that do exist in the secure level, or at the security level. Before we get started, though, I want to obviously give a huge shout out to our week sponsor, Faded Spade Cards. Our sponsor this week is the Faded Spade brand. Their new world-class 3.0 poker playing cards are now available, and viewers can use code ONLYFRIENDS for 15% off their order at fadedspade.com. Let's get into it. Today marks the end of the MLB season. A lot going on there. You won your bet.
I won my bet.
More importantly,
all I had to do is win 60 games.
Why you always gotta fucking be right there to cut people down whenever we're talking about the Steelers or the Pirates?
More importantly, my boy Judge.
Okay, we'll get the Judge.
Yeah, it's like, Jesus, can I run the show? Like, you know, it's like he wasn't even here for pre-production. Okay, so you won your bet.
I did win my bet. All I had to do was win 60 games. Not very hard to do.
And they only won 60 games.
They won 61.
Okay.
I believe...
Not even a sweat.
I believe Norman Chad lost his bet, though.
Yeah.
I think he needed over 62 and a half.
Yeah.
So even if they win today, they're only going to get to
You
62.
take a look at the chat.
I see the fucking chat.
Let's go, Bucks. Stinks. Peace
stinks.
To be fair,
Yeah,
P
yeah.
does stink.
They do stink. I mean, they lost 100 games this year, but there's hope. There's so much hope.
Man.
There's
Oh,
what?
man, there's hope. I'm telling you.
Yeah, there's fucking hope for the Yankees to get him in 2 years.
Listen. We got O'Neal Cruz. He's going to be one of the best players in the game.
Yes,
for
that's
sure.
right. And he's going to be in pinstripes within 2 to 3 years.
No, they
Whatever
have
his
control for
contract.
4 years.
All right, fine, 4
Right?
years.
I mean, we got these young guys. Jack Sawinski, he comes up. He plays half a year. He hits 20 home runs.
That's pretty strong.
Like, yeah.
You
right?
get pitched to a lot, though, when you're a 60-win team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't really
Maybe.
get pitched around all that often.
Well, you know, they can't pitch around everybody. I mean, we got Brian. We got Brian Reynolds. Brian Reynolds, he's an all-star caliber player, right? We got some good. We got guys coming up that are pitching 101 miles an hour.
Bro, you just said you can't pitch around everybody on a 60-win team.
Listen.
I mean, they're not the Yankees of 1996,
All right,
you know?
bold prediction: next year they are a 500-win team. Or
Wow.
500,
Wow.
500 team.
Wow.
Now, come on,
They
Brian.
play
I'll
close
let Conrad
to.
bet it on the tab.
They play close to 500. I'm not going to say they're going to do it, but they're definitely going to be hovering around 500 next year. That's my prediction.
All right, I'll let Conrad bet it on the tab.
Yeah, I'm actually going to give
I'm not going to do that because
I'm giving you 1.5 to 1.
I'm just going to bet over when the over is 65 next year.
Yeah,
But you can,
that's true.
You can only
Why
bet
would
like
I bet
200
Conrad?
max.
We can't just print. All right, so now we'll give Conrad his moment of glory. Aaron Judge yesterday.
Well, Aaron
Judge. Sorry. Aaron Judge broke
not part of the
the
Judd family.
AL single season home run record, not the MLB single season home run record,
doesn't-
which we
That's
all
whole-
know that Barry Bonds
Right.
holds.
Which has an
Steroid
asterisk
ridden-
next to it. Asterisk.
Yeah, you're right. This guy's for sure clean.
Yep.
He wasn't built in a fucking lab or anything. Okay, so he broke the home run record. He hit 62. He actually seems to have had a sweat at the Triple Crown, but not a strong enough one for them to play him today, as he's sitting out the final game of the season. What would you like to say about your boy who broke a former Yankees record, Roger Maris?
I'm happy for him.
You don't know shit about the history of the Yankees, do you? Like
What?
you're like Roger who?
No, I know Roger Maris.
Jolly Roger.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's pretty awesome because he only had 2 games left to do it. He played 55 straight games to do this, and to do it is pretty cool.
It was a no doubter.
It definitely was.
Watch the guy fall into the off the thing. You see? Wow. He was really going for it.
He just tumbled out. Where did he go?
Where did he go?
Aaron Judge is the American League single-season home run leader. BAL King. Case closed.
Yeah, definitely.
What I don't get. Sorry, I'll let you speak in a second. But I don't get the hype. It's a secondary record, right? It's just like it has so many qualifiers around it. It's like he broke the AL single season home run record. Like whatever.
I don't know, man.
Oh my
I think
God.
He wouldn't be saying that if
I
it
think
was a
it's
private
huge.
story.
No, you're right, Melissa.
It is. It is.
You're
It is a huge. It's definitely a big deal. First of all, like the record stood for so long, right? And then it did get broken when we had all of the. I mean, obviously these guys were cheating. These guys were roided out of their minds, and that's why you saw all these home runs hit. And now it's different. People don't hit home runs like people don't hit 60 home runs anymore. So it's like I think Mike Trout is second in the AL in home runs. He has 39. Yeah. Right. So it's an outlier season, and he did it on top of almost winning the Triple Crown. Like his batting average, which home run hitters don't have a batting average anymore. He's batting .311. So like the whole season, everything combined, I think is what
I think the same was true though during the maybe not for McGuire and Sosa so much, but like more so Sosa and Bonds. I think they were sweating the Triple Crown every year that they pushed this record through. I'm not trying to.
Oh, of course. No,
I'm not
Bonds,
trying to poo-poo his achievement.
For sure, Bonds. Right.
And I agree with what you're saying, but I will say that I was of the impression that we were going to see the home run rate inflate moving forward post steroid era. Not immediately post, but like as the game develops over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, I would assume 50 to be a more regular number. And it hasn't happened, but we've also seen the top out speed of the majority of the pitchers in like the average fastball has gone up.
Yes.
Right. So I think we're going to constantly see this like until there's an equilibrium that's reached. At some point, they're not going to be able to throw any harder, and hitters are going to get better.
Yeah.
Right. So I think at some point we'll see these power numbers continue to increase to the point where this may not be the achievement that we thought it was. Go ahead, Conrad. Not for nothing.
Have you ever seen Aaron Judge's mom and dad?
No.
All right. Well, like his mom is like half the size of him, and his dad's like a head shorter than him.
Okay.
Where the fuck did this guy come from?
I told you he's built in a fucking lab. Like 100%. He's crafted out of some sort of space age shit that we don't know about.
No, but you can also have like just a certain gene that just like will make you, you know,
yeah,
a giant.
Yeah, it's called being an alien.
Yeah.
Landon has that.
Landon
ate a small child in the womb.
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
Everybody's telling me Judge is adopted.
Oh, of course he is.
Not to bring.
He's adopted.
Is he Dominican?
No, he was fucking put on Earth by a spaceship.
Speaking of accolades, the Pirates do have.
Oh my God!
They have a real chance. Listen,
you've got to the point where I'm annoyed.
They have a real chance at
the number 1 draft pick.
No, definitely that. But Key Brian Hayes winning the Gold Glove at third base.
Oh, okay.
Which he should win it because he has the best stats. The problem is Nolan Arenado has never not won it, and his stats are.
That's the way baseball goes,
right? Yeah. And that's the thing. I feel like with those kind of awards where it's like the media, it's voting, right? So like, I think name recognition probably.
Yeah, yeah. With Golden Gloves, that's the case. Biggest one. Go ahead, Melissa.
I'm just laughing at the fact that he's adopted. And Conrad was making a point about his parents, and someone says, "How could you think those are his biological parents? He's clearly half black."
Oh my God, they're both white?
Yeah. His dad could honestly be like, I don't know.
This is our hood lawyer.
He could be like dark-skinned Italian or something.
This is why we had to scrap the very first episode we ever did. Because we just trust Conrad's Googling
episode.
No. Damn it, I told you in the text thread that
Here we go. Whatever.
Blah,
we need
blah,
to.
blah.
I hope we have that episode and we can re-release it on Patreon.
I honestly think it's been deleted from the world, but yeah, I agree. It would actually be hilarious. All right, so closing out on the baseball talk, we do have the postseason matchup set. Playoffs start tomorrow or the next day?
Friday.
Friday. Okay, so playoffs start Friday. In the AL, we're going to see Philly versus St. Louis.
NL.
Or sorry, man, I'm brain dead. In the NL, we'll see Philly versus St. Louis. The winner will play Atlanta. Atlanta won over 100 games in their division this year, so that's a very strong showing. The second strong showing is the Mets, who also won over 100 games and find themselves in a wild card spot. Right,
Atlanta.
Yeah, they won the series last year. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Mets are going to play a pretty tough San Diego team first round, but obviously they have the highest seed in the wild card, so they're effectively playing number 6. The winner of that game or that series, best of 3, will play LA. Always up there.
Nobody wants to go to fucking LA.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough spot to be in, but like LA is going to be playing a 100+ win Mets team.
Is that the Angels?
No, the Angels haven't made the playoffs in maybe 15 years.
The Dodgers?
Yeah, the Dodgers.
Okay.
On the NL side of things, we see Seattle versus Toronto, and the winner of that will play Houston. Man, I was talking about this in pre-production. It's amazing what Houston has done. They get caught cheating. The theme of this show. They get caught cheating to win the World Series 3 or 4 years ago.
Something like that.
They lose their ace in Cole. Well, I guess he was their number 2 at the time. So he was a Cy Young runner-up that year. Verlander won the Cy Young. They end up losing him to injury or whatever. And they're still just perennially there. Verlander comes back this year. He's, 38 now? Like, he's getting up there. Puts up Cy Young stats again. And now we see Houston as the number 2 seed, I assume.
Houston's 1.
Oh, Houston's 1. The Yankees are 2.
1, yeah.
Okay, wow, yeah. And obviously the AL East.
Yeah, they lost Springer too.
Yeah. The AL East obviously is just killing it this year with 3 representatives from the Yankees, Toronto, and Tampa Bay. We see Tampa Bay back in the playoffs playing Cleveland. The winner is going to play the Yankees. Honestly, this is probably the most interested I've been in the American League playoff in a long time. It's nice to see teams like Seattle, Toronto, Tampa Bay find their way back in.
Yeah.
I'm not that upset that Boston's not there. You love to see the Boston-Yankee rivalry, of course. Like that's always a theme. But I like to see these smaller market teams actually represent where we don't really see that in the NL. Yeah. The Mets, the Dodgers, the Padres, Philly. These guys all broke the fucking bank to get where they're at. Oh yeah, your Phillies are in there.
That's my Phillies.
I saw you head bob a little bit.
Well, actually, I was raised to be a Yankees fan, so.
Oh yeah, that's right. We know your mom. She liked Derek Jeter.
Yeah. Jeter.
Why do good pitchers, how do they get better over time? Like Scherzer, fucking Verlander.
There's an easy answer to that.
Steroids?
I mean, whether it's steroids or some other performance enhancer, like I'm of high confidence that everybody's using HGH. If you're not as an athlete, you're kind of just doing it wrong. And that's not even a slight.
HGH is banned or not banned?
It's a banned substance, but it's undetectable.
Because it's a natural hormone. Yeah. So it's just
it also has like very little correlation to your testosterone. So it's not like you start taking HGH and your T shoots up to like the mid 1500s.
Interesting.
It's just often stacked with testosterone. So like during the Bonds era, the steroid era or whatever, they were doing stacks of anabolic steroids with HGH. The HGH is for recovery purposes. It's for longevity. It keeps your, it basically keeps you youthful. Yeah, it keeps you youthful longer.
Does it make you live longer?
I don't think we know.
Time will tell, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we know yet because there is the potential downside that it increases the size of your organs, especially if it's abused.
Oh, is that why they get that bloated look?
So yes, the Joe Rogan bubble gut. Yes. Yeah, that's a thing. It's pretty clear he's abused. When I say abused, I mean like taken extreme amounts of HGH, and the end result of that is bubble gut.
Maybe that's why I have such a big heart, because I was on HGH as a kid.
Oh, maybe.
Do you actually have an enlarged heart?
No.
Okay.
I just have a big heart.
Right, just the theoretical big heart. Okay. But yeah, I don't even think it's like a common occurrence that the downside of HGH is enlarged organs, but there is it's growth hormone, right? So it increases the growth of your nails, your hair, all these things, and it also extends out to your organs. So if not monitored properly, that can be a potential downside. So as far as like extending life, we're not sure, but it extends quality of life for sure. That's my little pitch for HGH today, I guess.
Go buy yours. Sponsored by HGH.
They were talking about the strategy of the playoffs, and like, because it's a different format this year than it's ever been, where the wild card game is 3 games, right? So they were saying that like the Mets might hold off and not pitch Syndergaard until game 3 if they have to. That way they can have him ready for game 1 of the NLDS if they have to, hoping that they make it, and then if they do have to play game 3, play Syndergaard, pitch him then.
I wonder if they pitch their rotation backwards.
I guess it would be similar to that, but they said, I think they said that potentially these teams could be playing like 8 games in 10 days, which is a lot for the playoffs. They usually have these travel days and these day offs, so they can kind of get their pitchers rested, but it's going to be different this year. So you might look at 4-man rotations instead of 3-man rotations.
Do you think they start with the 3 pitcher and then go 4 if they win and 2 if they lose?
I think they go with. If it's a 3 game, you're talking about the wild card?
Yes, it's a 3 game series.
I think you're going to use your best 3, but I think you would go.
No, I don't think you use your best
2, 3, 1.
Well, I think it's strategically. I would think you start with your number 3 pitcher.
Okay.
And if you can win that game, then you can throw your number 4, and now you have your.
No, they're not going to go number 4 and not put number 2 in there. You need it. You're not. I don't think.
I don't actually understand this strategy. You should always throw your number 1 game 1. Because
Well-
there's enough rest where he'd be coming back for game 1 of the next series anyway.
Wrong.
It would be
that's
4 or 5
that's
days.
that's the point. That's what we're saying.
They're playing 3
Oh,
straight.
because they don't do 3-day or 3-day
There's 3 games in a row, and
break.
then
A
no,
day- there's no travel day?
I don't think so. I know that they said there was a reason why there wouldn't be, like, if he played game 1 of the wild card, he wouldn't be ready for game 1 of the NLDS. That's the whole reason why.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's because they just
Stable.
don't want people throwing on short rest.
Maybe.
Which, if that's the case, okay, fine. Yeah, you would throw your 2 game 1 because
2,
he certainly will be
right.
ready for game 2.
Yeah. So 2, 3, and then
1
1
if need be.
if necessary.
Yeah.
That's the strat.
That definitely seems like the right strat, at least for the Mets. I think if you're the underdog, you probably just throw your 1. Throw your 1 versus their 2, try to steal 1.
Yeah.
And then hope for the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting out of baseball, let's get into the real meat and potatoes. For today, let's talk cheating. So first story that we have to cover, and this is unfortunate. I've known Ian since he was a young man coming up in the scene. Always had great things to talk about or to speak about when it regarded him. I went deep in the Brigada 15K WPT championship with him when I think he was like either just turning 21. I imagine he was just turning 21 at that point. And I said that, this kid's going to be a crusher. Like, I thought he was going to be one of the biggest up-and-comers on the tournament scene at the time. Very intelligent guy. Seems to have lost his way quite a bit. Yesterday, Kane Kalas outed him as a scammer. The general details, as I understand them, are that he had asked Kane for both an MTT and cash backing deal and did not disclose that he was already engaged in a deal with Jonathan Jaffe, and seems to have been in makeup. Shortly thereafter, it was discovered that this deal did exist, and John and Kane started to cross-reference all of the sessions that were being reported to each other. It came back that there was some misreporting, so it did work out where Ian was not overselling. The percentages that each of them had did equal less than 100, so he wasn't scamming in the sense that he was overselling or stealing just money off the top that way. But it did seem like he was misreporting or not reporting openly to both.
He had two backers?
Yes.
So he was getting double funded?
Well, no, because he basically, each stake had under the 100% combined.
Okay.
So he wasn't overselling.
He was funding
for
a
it.
stake from 2 different people, but then reporting some to one and then reporting others to the
So he
other.
would
Right.
report
So I
eight.
would imagine that the way this worked is if he played a cash game and it behooved him to be on Kane's stake for that one, then he would only tell Kane he was playing said cash game
Right.
and not Jonathan, and vice versa.
Okay.
Right. So
So it was kind of, maybe it was if he had more makeup on one, then he would make it, or I don't know.
I
don't know
imagine
how
it
worked.
mattered how big the game was. So the way that these usually work is after a certain buy-in threshold, you start to sell.
Okay.
So at the point where he was supposed to sell, he probably just brought in his second backing deal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. And basically said okay,
So
I
he was
sold.
free rolling.
Yeah.
But saying that he sold.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So eventually, the House of Cards fell. They found everything out. They realized that he was misreporting, and they called him out on it. It seems like Ian took full responsibility, basically begged them not to disclose this to the public at the time, that he was going to make right on it. And honestly, I understand why they gave him the benefit of the doubt. Like I said, Ian, by all parts, has always shown to be good character, and I think they trusted that he was going to make good. They said that he had basically misreported up to the tune of mid 6 figures, so we're talking a lot of money. Over the course of time, he was the contingency to them not outing him was that he had to report every single thing that he played to both of them moving forward. And it seemed like he made good on that promise, paid back about 40% of what he owed. And then recently they discovered that he had sold to the open market to play the Poker Masters, never played it, never disclosed to them that he was selling, and was sending fake receipts to his buyers saying that he had busted, seemingly pocketing all the money. So obviously he was confronted again. Ian replied to the thread. He hasn't made a public statement yet, but he kind of just replied to Kane's thread, corroborating the story, saying that he's very sorry to have affected Kane and John with his decisions. He made these choices on his own and now must face the consequences. He'll do everything in his power to rectify the situation as much as possible. He will do better in every aspect of life moving forward. Thank you.
He changed his profile picture to black.
I mean,
blackout.
Understandably so. So yeah, this is kind of a black eye on what I would have considered to be one of the good guys in poker. It's unfortunate this type of stuff happens, man. People have their demons. Not really sure what exactly.
Yeah, they said he was funding his lifestyle, so they didn't mention. Usually, like if it was pits or something, they usually mention that, but they said they specifically said his lifestyle.
Right, and I don't know what that entails. I don't know how he's living. I just know that he put in a lot of work to lose a lot of weight, so that's one thing that seemed like he was passionate about. Maybe his lifestyle was just playing poker on his own dime and getting funded that way. I'm not really sure. I don't want to speculate. I just know that this sucks. And, I completely understand why they went public. There's a lot of chatter that they should have went public the first time to prevent the people who have now been rolled this second time. Hopefully Ian does right by them, but people who are in this situation, man, they don't just come into money all that easily.
Yeah. I mean, he paid back 40%.
But he was still in action. He had a new backer.
Oh, and he no longer has that backer.
I mean, I can't imagine.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul, maybe kind of situation.
Right. Yeah, precisely. So yeah, I mean, I don't have super high hopes, not because I don't trust that he wants to do better, but just because the opportunity's kind of gone, and rightfully so. So yeah, it's a shitty situation, but I think it's our duty to kind of get that stuff out there. Not someone to do business with moving forward. Let's get to the Garrett stuff. We have Maanit on the line, and I don't want to keep him waiting too much longer. So I just want to catch everybody up to date where we are currently on this situation. First and foremost, one of the things that we broke early was that there was a potential device on Robbi's hip, and there was a clear outline of what seemed to be a rectangular device. It looks as though Bill Perkins has done a lot more digging. So this is the image that we initially released. Perkins has done a lot of digging and thinks that he's disproved this. I see this image and I still see the bulge. I'm not sure if you can zoom in on the left at all, Guapo, but the area that Perkins is demonstrating here, it's not the same as the bulge that we see, as far as I can tell. He basically said he's still not sure. The video is a little bit too grainy. The quality is a little bit too poor. But basically there's doubt now that actually was a physical device on her person. And, we don't have a lot of great camera angles. So it's tough, man. I mean, that to me looks like a physical device. Melissa, you don't think so?
My thoughts are that I would believe it if I saw another angle that shows that thing, whatever it is, was there. Otherwise, looking at the pants, there's there's seams and there's a perforated panel that could definitely make cameras do weird stuff. I mean, I need another angle. Why would there be no other angle if there was something in there?
Because this is the roving cameraman. He just happened to be.
But they had one from above. There was a post that showed other angles, one from above, and then one sort of front-ish down, and there was no bump or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 6-hour show, and we definitely don't notice it until later in the show. There are multiple angles from where you can notice it.
Right.
Beyond the 5-hour mark.
Well, it said that it showed up after the confrontation with Garrett.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So why would it show up after?
Well,
if it was a cheating device.
Well, she may have just moved it. It could have been on her left hip before. We don't know.
She moved it to be visible after.
She doesn't know it's visible. That's just Raver Poker with a camera that happened to catch that angle. It's not
per chance.
I mean, I'm not going to try to go through the logic. If she cheated with Jack 4 high in hand. So it's trying to tie the logical loops together.
If that was really there would be another angle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not conclusive by any stretch. The other thing that we want to talk about is, and I didn't have time to find a lot of this context, but there's a giant Reddit thread basically poking holes in a lot of the Rip Robbi backstory. So this is all falling apart a little bit. You guys can check that out. It's a pretty easy search away. Effectively, we kind of spoke about this before, but it appears as though Rip is certainly not giga wealthy. I don't know what his actual wealth is, but tracing the timeline, it appears as though he's been involved in some low-level scamming in the past, and may or may not.
Wait, he was involved in low-level scamming?
Yeah, I did. I just parsed through the thread very quickly, so I don't want to say anything slanderous that I'm not confident in or speculate. People can do their own research.
This is all a paraphrase from some thing you read.
Yeah. Okay. Again, it's just hearsay, but it's leaning that way. Basically, there's some evidence that he was a contracted electrician for a long time. He moved into the housing development space and then attempted to launch an online weed company.
Okay.
But it seems like none of that stuff super panned out.
Okay.
But not sure. Again, who knows, man? People have windfalls,
Yeah.
Maybe he had
and
a
sometimes
windfall.
people, they're already rich from family or whatever.
Yeah, could be. There's also a lot of people confirming that he and Robbi play around town a bunch in very small buy-ins.
Okay,
so
interesting.
like less than 5K at the most
Cash.
is like the biggest cash games that they play.
Interesting.
Like 5K buy-ins.
That is very interesting.
And there's also the thing where she has $250,000 on the table, and he had bought in for 100K and then lets himself bleed down to like 18. Very disproportionate. Just food for
Maybe
thought.
he's doing the Helmuth strat.
Yeah,
where
could
you
be.
buy in and then
Try to run it up.
You will just ride that bullet down
Yeah.
to a tiny little nugget.
We've all been there. I understand it. Last couple of things. Hustler continues their investigation. Yesterday on Joey Ingram's pod, Nick came back on to kind of give an update there. Kessler grilled him a little bit. I joined them for a few minutes as well.
I came in at the end of, I guess, the tail end of that, where it's just this heated back and forth between Kessler and Nick.
Yeah.
And then
It got
Nick like just got off the phone. He's like,
He lost his shit.
Kessler's like, well, I just don't understand why. And Nick's like, I'm off this phone. I'm just like, what's going on?
I mean, you have to understand, like, Nick is getting run ragged at this point.
Yeah.
He's getting dragged and pulled in every direction, and Kessler's just kind of like being dense for the sake of being dense.
Definitely a Karen.
Yeah. Yes.
You know,
the
I
Karen
think he's
Kessler
the most
account is very
Karen
appropriate.
Karen I've seen.
Right. I couldn't agree more, and not because I don't like Kessler, but because it's just an accurate description. Yeah. So yeah, that's going to continue moving forward. Nick's basically saying, like, at the end of it all, everything will be revealed, but for the time being, like, he wants to keep the methods of his investigations under wrap. I respect that. I think it's smart. Looking forward to, I think we're kind of turning things over to that at this point. Finally, today, Garrett put out a message saying that he wants to take all the attention that he's getting and put it on at least a good cause. It appears as though he is pushing for people to consider donating to Big Brothers of Los Angeles, and he himself put up a hefty donation. I bet you can guess the number.
Did it happen to be 135,000?
It seems Garrett Adelstein has donated 135K to the Big Brother organization. Conrad was kind of speculating that, or he kind of asked, does that mean that Garrett's done with this all, and that's his final decision?
Tax write-off for that, right?
I would assume so.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Well, I mean, to be clear, I don't think this means he wouldn't give the money back to Robbi.
Yeah.
So even though this is obviously some image repair and whatnot, I imagine that if I had to guess, Garrett probably donates to Big Brother anyway and just doesn't make it public. And this is kind of an opportunity to make it public and kind of get people off his back a little bit.
Yeah.
I also imagine that the internet being what it is will just kind of double down and hate him more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's no good deed goes unpunished.
When the mob is against you, I think it seems like, just from seeing this happen to other celebrities and comedians and stuff, it seems like the best strat is to be silent.
Yeah.
For at least until they get mad about something else.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for even like Robbi.
Yeah.
I think the majority of the internet was on her side, and she made some pretty fucking bad takes yesterday, and you could see the tone shift a lot.
I didn't see.
She was like trying to accuse Garrett of cheating on Live at the Bike because he was pulling chips out of his bag.
Yeah, and then she went back on that.
I mean, obviously, like people were in her ear saying, like, "Stop talking."
Yeah.
Like every time you talk, it insinuates more and more guilt.
Bertucci said on Joey's podcast, like, I wish she would stop.
Yeah, it does not help her case at all. So speaking of said case, Maanit Madan is going to join us. My apologies for keeping you waiting so long. To give a little bit of a background of how I met Maanit, he has developed a new RFID poker technology. I'll let you describe it a little bit, maybe give a little bit of your background as far as how you got into this space.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Maanit. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. But yeah, just a little bit about me. I don't think many people out there watching this would really know who I am in the community, but basically I kind of got into playing poker at a young age, kind of found this need for a better RFID solution as I kind of went through college, studied a lot of computer science, studied software security. And I think from the beginning, our focus was never really how can we build a better or more secure solution. It was basically how can we take the current solutions and make a better poker table, one that tracks chips, that tracks cards, and allow players to kind of get that data, card rooms to get that data and actually improve their game, improve their operations, and obviously a more secure way. And kind of growing up with technology, you kind of see how outdated a lot of systems are today and how we kind of want to take that and take it to the next level. So my goal is to basically just take RFID technology and use that in poker and kind of help the game grow. And yeah, so I'm here.
Yeah, I think that's really good, mainly because I want everybody to understand that in order to get to the point of creating what you have to have a pretty intimate understanding of this tech. And, you know, as somebody whose background is computer science, and for what it's worth, I am very far removed. I haven't programmed in almost 20 years. So I don't even know what the current languages are that are most commonly used or anything of that nature. But I have really forced myself to educate or become educated on the leading tech whenever it comes to the poker industry as a whole. And, you know, I have a working relationship with Andrew Milner, who created the original Poker GFX product. He's helped me understand the back end a lot better there. You know, also to clarify a few things that I maybe spoke a little bit out of pocket with yesterday, in having a back and forth with him, he has removed that feature on Poker GFX that used to allow you to broadcast out in real time while running the delay. He basically said that the upside of allowing production houses to do that did not outweigh the downside of the potential security breach. So he is conscientious of the vulnerabilities out there, as I'm sure you are. What I found to be most interesting about your product was the data collection element of it. As poker players in this industry who have kind of evolved through the online launching of poker gaming, I believe that we've done a very good job of becoming data analysts over the aggregate, and we've caught a lot of cheating this way. So could you speak a little bit to the aspect of the data collection element of your product and how that could potentially help secure some of these vulnerabilities?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is from the beginning, we've kind of always looked at the data to be the main value that we provide. And that's mainly because, I mean, when I first saw GFX, and I think what Andrew's done and what GFX has done is great for the game. They spent the last 10 years kind of providing live streaming tables to places and making it more accessible. So I think they've done kind of a great job on that. But to me, when I first saw their system, I thought, hey, why isn't this data being used to help kind of figure out more things for the card room in terms of security? Why is it not being used for the players where they can go back and see their information and see what are my leaks in my game, what's my VPIP, and kind of accessing all of that data? Maybe you don't need the cameras for that, but that's a possibility. And when we first kind of looked into that, I said the big problem is the RFID chips, right? They don't use RFID chips. You have to manually type in the bets, and that means you have someone sitting in a room in the back typing that in for a live stream, and it also reduces the ability to have a very accessible solution for people in their homes or smaller card rooms that can't afford such a big setup and a room and everything like that. So I wanted to kind of make a setup that had the ability to track the data, but focus on the security side of it and focus on helping players improve their game and card rooms improve their operations. Because I think overall data has a pretty bad connotation in our world today, right? People think of data as like, oh, I'm being tracked, or oh, the information is being stored somewhere else by someone else and can be accessed by someone else. And that's also caused a lot of the issues we're seeing with this whole scandal today. The fact that it's on an RFID table is causing people to think cheating could exist, and that would be very unlikely if this was just done on a normal table, right? So I think that's something that's important to note, that when we look at data, we're not looking in terms of how can it be used to in a malicious way, but we're looking at how can we make the most secure solution possible and have a net positive result on the players and on the card rooms.
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation. That's personally where I see it serving the biggest benefit. Obviously, it's helpful to players to be able to go back and study and all that stuff, but I've always made pretty strong arguments for why that's kind of bad for the game health as a whole. Like there was a big uproar that WSOP.com doesn't allow you to access your hand histories in bulk and upload to things like PT4 and HEM. And I was kind of always on their side, because though it does help suss out cheating, they're regulated, and I think we have to entrust that that's happening behind the scenes on their security side with gaming and all those other things. And curbing any mass data analysis, like MDA to me, is very sketch. That's a whole separate conversation that we don't need to have now. But the amount of MDA that's taking place online, I think, is hurtful to the overall ecosystem. And I have certain hesitations with that becoming the case also in live. But live is so slow. Right? The amount of data that you're able to collect as an individual to learn off of, to build strategies and things of that nature, it's very not sufficient and not much more than you would get off the eye test anyway, right? Like me watching 10 hours of you playing poker is probably going to hold more weight because of the actual context that I get to arrive at by seeing the actions prior to you acting or whatever the case may be, rather than just like a black and white hand history where you are cold calling a 3-bet or something of that nature. I don't get the context of game flow. So because of that, now I kind of am all in on the security side, because that's where we are fundamentally flawed, in my opinion, in the live realm. And I think now that argument for players can police a lot better if this data is public and if this data is available to be sourced. That's a really strong argument, because there isn't a gaming commission overlooking these streams. There isn't a third party. We're trusting the stream houses themselves. And though I do have a reasonably high amount of trust for the people who run these stream houses, they're not exactly incentivized to catch cheating, right? It's kind of bad for the brand, so to speak. So I kind of wanted to lead this interview then into first and foremost discussing some of the leading theories out there. Your blog post that you put out today, I thought was very well written and kind of dives into some of those. So I just want to pick your brain, and we can nerd out a little bit as far as like why technically some of these are very low to zero probabilities, and then maybe give a little credence to the ones that could be a little bit more feasible.
Yeah, I think all that's a good point. I think in terms of security, and I talked to you about this before, but what I really liked is you guys talked about this, I think yesterday, day before yesterday on the podcast, about how when GFX was first designed, right? And they've kind of, like I said, they've done a great job to kind of put this out there, but when they were first designed, it was meant to not be a commercial solution, and it was a plug and play solution that you can just put in any card room and just have working. They didn't think that there'd be a $100,000 plus game going on in a casino with the software 10, 15 years down the line, right? And I think that's something that's important to note, because when you're talking about a system that can kind of look at all these vulnerabilities and kind of see how can we close every gap, I don't think that should be left to the card room. I think that's the main issue. By having the card room worry about if the network is completely secure, or if the cards were registered correctly, and if they scan all those kind of variables, the more you add, the less likely they're going to be able to do something successfully, right? And I've gone and visited a bunch of these card rooms over the last few months, years. A lot of them have let me go into the back room and see how they function, how they're running, and every single card room runs differently with the software. So I think that designing a system where you think about integration from the beginning, and I kind of think of it as if you were to build a parallel to personal computing, right? It's the same way how a Windows system, which is plug and play, can have so many more viruses and vulnerabilities than, say, like a MacBook or an Apple system.
Yeah, I think that analogy is perfect, right? We wouldn't start selling personal computers and expect the user to make them secure, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I guess at first we did. We expected them to buy third-party software like McAfee antivirus and things of that nature. But it's evolved and it's gotten better, and we're kind of at that point now here too, where we should take some of this onus off of the card houses, and just look into being the more sophisticated or developing something more sophisticated on the hardware software side. Because the fact of the matter is, the people who are starting these streams and running these businesses, they're not privy to software. They're not educated in that realm, right? They're either going to be specialized in production or in poker management or marketing or something of that realm, but it's going to have very little to do with actually comprehending the tech at play. So let's discuss a few of the leading theories, because I think my initial focus was to figure out if there was anything nefarious happening and then circle back to the how. But what I'm realizing is that hand is so standalone off that there's almost no point in trying to figure out if anything else adds up to something nefarious. It's like that hand as in isolation is almost like a smoking gun in and of itself. And figuring out the how is actually a lot more pertinent now, because if we can start to dismiss ways that they did not cheat, then we can at least hone in on potential opportunities or vulnerabilities that they could have taken advantage of, or just begin to dismiss it altogether and say, like, look, this person lost their mind in a hand with Jack 4 high, happened to be right, and won a massive life-changing pot. So the theories as I have them laid out, the first one that I think is getting the most traction is that she was able to, or a partner of some sort who was signaling her was able to infiltrate the RFID system, right? So in order, can we speak first and foremost about the idea of her just bringing in a third-party RFID reader?
Yeah, so that's something I talked a little bit about in the article, because that's probably the main thesis I've kind of seen everyone on social media come out with, because that just seems like, if you don't know much about the system, that seems like the first way you think of, right? It's something to do with the hardware and something she brought in and put there, like Ocean's 11 style, right? So I think that that seems to be, to me, one of the most unlikely situations if there's even cheating going on. I think that having a device to, first of all, read these RFID cards needs to be pretty strong, and for that you need a lot of power, right? So you can obviously read something from close by. I was talking to Joey Ingram about this, but he was saying like the water bottle, right? And I think the water bottle is something that's close to her own cards. It can definitely read it if you were able to design a RFID system that was exact shape, and even to get those parts, it's a huge hassle, but I'm sure she could figure out some way if she wanted to cheat. But even if you have that system, being able to read the cards next to her is possible, but reading across the table, or to, even if she was supposed to target a specific opponent, I think those kind of things are very difficult to do with a system like that, unless she set up something right next to it. It would be pretty obvious, and it'd be plugged into some power source. So yeah, don't think that's likely.
Okay, so digging into that a little bit more, there are a few things that I want to dispel. So first and foremost, what is the actual readability range of the cards? So say she wants to read Garrett's cards. Is that even feasible being 6 feet away?
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on the manufacturers of the cards. So the protocol these RFID cards are called vicinity cards. And the ones I've kind of examined being used, like the Faded Spades cards, shout out sponsor Faded Spade, but those kind of cards usually end up having a read range of about, I'd say, 5 to 10 centimeters. So she wouldn't really be able to read Garrett's cards, and that's kind of with a caveat, because if you have this read strength isn't really dependent that much on the card itself. It's more on the readers and the antennas inside the table. If you've played on one of these live streaming tables, you notice with the antennas that they have, you'd have to like rub the cards a lot or make sure that it's read. So you have to be extremely close, within a couple centimeters, to read it. But if someone came from outside with a massive reader using the exact same protocol, which is very hard to build, it's technically possible, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. I don't think it's likely, and I don't think it would go unnoticed. Yeah,
I can confirm, just knowing Tom well and also having spoke with Andrew, that the Faded Spade cards are about 8 to 10 centimeters in range. Yeah. I just wanted you to kind of speak on that. Secondarily, when reading these cards. So let's say that she was theoretically able to get an RFID reader in there of some sort. Can you speak a little bit to the registration process and compiling the actual database? Because I'll let you speak on it technically, and then I'll try to translate it. But specifically what I'm talking about is the UID of each card and how that works.
Yeah, so I think that's a major vulnerability in these kind of systems. So essentially the way it works is when you scan one of these RFID cards, and you can even do it with your phone if you just download an app like NFC Tools, you can just scan the card and you can get a serial number there that shows the serial number for that specific tag. And the way that essentially works is, or at least the way I'm guessing now, we don't build the systems that Hustler uses, so I don't want to talk for them. But essentially the way that it's always been is the serial numbers would be tied to a card that is kind of mentioned when you register it. So before the game, when you get a deck of cards, the production team will go there and they'll scan each card one by one and store, okay, this is the ace of spades, this is the two of spades, and the system will store in the back end showing each serial number and what card that represents, right? I think that's a big vulnerability because if I register the cards once and play 10 games with that and say someone got their hands on the cards after game 1, they'll know the information at game 10, right? So it should be a necessity in the software to keep changing these values and serial numbers. That's why when we design our cards, we don't build it like that. But I think that's an important thing to notice.
Yeah, so to put that into lay terms, basically each card has a unique ID to it. And if you did have an RFID reader, you'd be able to capture that unique ID. There's nothing encrypting it, right? It's open source for everybody. What matters, though, is these cards have to be registered to the readers at the table in order for them to produce graphics out, right? So you actually have to then translate that unique ID into a visual graphic or into English if you're cheating, right? So basically what it would take would be a plant coming in with an RFID reader, scanning the entire deck throughout the course of a session. So every time they're dealt 2 cards, they scan them. And then after the fact, go home, watch the entire stream, and every single time that they're dealt a hand, then connect that unique ID that they scanned in real time to it and create this database. Now, the easy way to avoid this is to always swap out your decks, right?
So if they were not swapping out the decks, theoretically, could the water bottle have been scanning the cards
that's
throughout the past sessions?
Right. That's kind of one of the leading theories. Yeah. I'll let you discuss.
It's so unlikely that. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say it's so unlikely that they would just use one deck through 3 sessions.
Well, it's 2 decks.
Or 2 decks. Right.
I actually have information that might not be as unlikely as you think.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just think that they would like. I know, like when we do it, we have like 3 or 4 decks, and we're just doing the academy, and then we have like, you know. Like if you're doing a stream, you would almost like register them before, re-register a different deck before each session, just to make sure that they're all
sure. But the whole point is that like negligence could occur.
Yes, of course.
Also, cards get swapped out like throughout time.
Yeah. But that's also another theory that's taking place now with the 4 and the 6 getting swapped out. That if they had a database compiled, they would only see that she had the Jack of Clubs there.
Yeah, and the reason they get swapped out is because
they break.
They break, right? So the reader inside breaks, and then you have to swap it out.
Good.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to the first point I was trying to make, right? Where if having the card room swap out the decks and stuff like that shouldn't be on the card. Like it's not like Ryan Feldman or Nick Vertucci, they're experts in this kind of thing, and they know that, hey, I should swap it out after every game, and I should have 100 decks lined up. I mean, each of these decks right now are costing $50 to $100, sometimes $150. So having that is not really a feasible solution, but it is the right thing to do, right? And I think that's just something in the design of the system that is an issue.
Is it feasible though for the water bottle to have been scanning? By the way, I'm going to dismiss this afterwards, but I'm just kind of asking the feasibility of it.
It is, but only probably the cards next to the water bottle. So only her cards. It could be used to kind of collect the data, and every time she gets 2 cards, say, okay, here are the 2 cards I got. Here's the IDs for each of them. That's definitely possible, but that wouldn't help her in the Jack 4 situation, knowing what Garrett had, because it wouldn't be able to read all the way across the table. Right.
So effectively, if she were doing that, like let's say her first stream where we initially saw the bottle, she could have been data collecting the decks then, building up the registry, and then having a compilation of said registry moving forward. But to Manit's point, now the water bottle has no purpose for us in this session.
You'd almost
right?
need somebody else on the other side.
Well, that's what would be happening. She would be getting communicated to via some earpiece or device or buzz or whatever the case may be, right? That's how the system would ultimately fix. I'm pointing this out because I want people to understand how many hoops you have to jump through in order to do this. And now that we kind of speak about this, well, I actually want to hold off on that for 1 second. So just to talk about then the bottle still being on the table, either it would only be for consistency's sake because now there's nothing in it, and if people ask to check it, like you could clearly demonstrate that there's nothing in it, or it was in case they swapped out cards so that she could then capture the new cards, and somebody watching at home on a 2-hour delay would eventually be able to put them in. I don't think there's a lot of weight to either of these theories. I've spoken about it at length, talking with Maanit. Now, it's just a whole lot, right? It's a lot of work and a lot of prep and a lot of planning that could lead to, I would assume, a better spot than the Jack 4.
Yeah.
Another one of the theories. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that everyone on social media is kind of focused on these two aspects of, first of all, how did she get the information about the cards, either through the water bottle or by scanning it? It's pretty easy to do either way. And then the second thing they're focusing on is how did she kind of get that information in real time, right? Either through the thing in her pocket or something. I think those are really the easy parts of figuring out the situation here, right? You could set, I mentioned this in the piece as well, but you can kind of set up a visual signal somewhere, just putting a light. I know their room's surrounded by glass. You put a light somewhere that kind of just flashes every time, or have some kind of any kind of signal to her is pretty easy to set up.
Yeah.
The hard part, the part that I think everyone should be kind of focused on if you were to think about the situation, is how can you access and know what Garrett had at that moment, and also where's the vulnerability there, right?
Yes, that I wholeheartedly agree with. I think we've come to the conclusion that if she's cheating, the signaling aspect would not be difficult. It's the perfect information. Somehow acquiring the perfect information, finding a vulnerability in the system in some capacity. We'll kind of speak about this with the final leading theory. But before I do that, I want to dismiss another technical theory that is one that's getting passed along. So there's been this video that surfaced 4 or 5 years ago. It was very popular during the Postle scandal. And it basically gets misconstrued for RFID technology a lot. I'm not sure if you're aware of the one I'm talking about, but it's the infrared. Yeah. So just to set this up, and I'll let you speak about it a little more in depth, but this Frenchman did like a TED Talk sort of video where he demonstrates this deck of cards. And what it is you can buy an already marked deck of cards with infrared, and they're marked like on the spine of the cards, if you will. So when the deck is facing in any one of the 4 directions, those spines will have the infrared codes on them. And what the person who's cheating then does is basically has some sort of reading device that shines an infrared laser on the deck of cards, gets back perfect information as far as like how the deck is set top to bottom, and then gets a readout however they so choose. So I think that there was multiple ways that you could program it. It could either tell you like what the next card was, it could tell you the deck 1 through 52, or it could tell you by seat who is going to get dealt a winner, second best, third best, etc. So there was sophistication there in how you could cheat. But the few things that you need to understand is that it requires getting a pre-marked deck, which in this instance would require you getting a very custom deck because they're faded Spade cards with Hustler branding on it. Somehow you would have to get that custom deck turned into a marked infrared deck. It requires the infrared device, which as of that video required a ton of power, as you were kind of speaking. So you could get multiple batteries, but they were only good for like 30 minutes. So somehow you would have to have like 10 batteries on you, constantly leaving the table to change the batteries in your device. And then finally, not only would you have to get this marked deck in, but you would somehow have to get it registered by the house as a legitimate deck. So this almost certainly would require an inside person. Can you speak a little bit to this tech?
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't worked much with infrared in terms of cards. I know the way they kind of originated was in chips in casinos. They used to mark the chips inside with infrared, or some kind of ultraviolet. So if it was stolen, you could break open the chip, look at a light, and see if it's real or not, or see which casino it's from. So that's kind of how it originated. And the video I think you're talking about, in that they kind of shuffle the cards, and immediately on the phone you get a voice saying what the order of the cards are going to come out in.
Correct.
I think it's a little bit of a stretch, because that doesn't really show all the setup required to show the camera looking at it. It has to be at a pretty good angle to see every single card in the deck while it's being shuffled. It has to be extremely accurate and positioned to know the exact layering of the cards without, I mean, a single mistake could make the cheater lose as much money as they win, right? So it has to be extremely accurate, and I can probably name 10 better ways to kind of access that data than using infrared. And also, I don't even know if the cards that they get even have infrared marked on. I don't know why they would do that. I don't know any systems that use that.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. There's another theory that's going around. It's revolving around Rip's watch. So it's a very, very expensive watch. It's a Bubba Watson. Can't recall the full name.
Richard Milley.
Richard Milley, yeah. Apparently, there's only like 5,000 of them made. Very expensive watch, like $500,000, something of that effect. But there's a lot of people on the internet supposing that it's actually a fraud and housing a RFID reader of some sort. Can you talk a little bit about? So we've already discussed this, but on top of that theory, there's this notion of repeaters and UHF. UHF being ultra high frequency. Can you speak a little bit about those and how they could potentially be worked into this?
Yeah, first of all, I think that UHF seems pretty unlikely. So just to give a bit of background, in RFID, there are multiple standards, right? There's low frequency, high frequency, and ultra high frequency. What you'll kind of see is ultra high frequency are used can be read over kilometers of distance, right? You can have a tag being read from across the street, because that's kind of what's used in, like, if you go to a clothing store and when your clothes are kind of walked out with, or stuff like that, right? And that could be used to read across the table. But the problem here is that the cards that are being used are, like I said, for vicinity cards, which is high frequency. And you can't really read tags at different frequencies, and especially not from a watch that small. That's probably not even possible.
Right. Yeah. I think that that's important to understand, because even if we were using UHF, what needs to be understood is that you'll get a lot of noise. So you have to understand how many UIDs or unique IDs are actually broadcasting at this table at once, right? There's 52 in the cards, and then you also just have the interference of the other 9 or 10 readers or whatever at the table that are causing a problem. So, if you think of it as like, it is a radio wave. So if you think of it as a band, it's going to expand as it goes out in nature, right? It's not linear, where you could just like aim it from Robbi to Garrett or Robbi to Rip or anything along those lines. It's going to cascade out in a field, and that field is going to be, it's going to be very noisy. So you have to think about precision whenever we're talking about these types of techniques, right? It's all about getting perfect information in a precise manner and in a very short order of time. So the last one I want to speak about, the last leading, and if anything is occurring, I think that this is obviously the most probable, especially after talking about like what it would take in order to do the infrared scam, or basically be able to breach any of the technology. And that's the idea of just an inside job, right? That's largely what we saw with the Apostle scenario, whether he acted alone or was in part with Justin Curitis or one of the other members of Stones. What we know for sure is that he had access. So he had access to the server room in some capacity. Whether someone else was involved or not, we don't know. But that led to it effectively being an inside job, because where this whole system is most vulnerable is if your server is not protected. And I'll let you speak about this too, but when the cards are read, that information is then sent to the server in an encrypted manner, right? It's not like you could just pull the packets out of the air at that point and just know that seat one has the ace of spades type of thing, right? It goes encrypted, the server decrypts them, and then spits out graphics for the people to put on screen. If you had somebody working with you, they would just then be able to relay that perfect information, right? So basically, this all just comes down to accessibility of real-time info. and making the system as trustless as possible. Can you talk a little bit about the vulnerabilities around the trust involved in running this system and how having an inside person could potentially lead to a cheating scandal?
Yeah, I think to me, I really don't know if there was cheating going on here or not. I don't even want to make any assumptions because we don't have all the information, and I think their investigation will know that. But if I were to kind of look at all the possible ways to do this, and if I had to design my own way to kind of figure out how to get data here, this would probably be the most likely situation, right? And it's what we saw with Postal, where you have someone sitting in the back who's typing in the bets, typing in the stuff, and they can see the cards in real time. They're the only people who can see it. And there are two big flaws there, right? Either that one person could be working with them. That's something we just can't figure out without knowing the team and knowing Hochstetler. But the other side could be that even without them knowing, there's a flaw in the system, right? Either that computer's footage after post-production, after showing the overlays, has been sent over the network, or either there's been a Trojan kind of installed in that system. And kind of what we saw with the whole Bryn situation where people were talking about TeamViewer. You can have a software like TeamViewer that's set up without anyone noticing, that's sharing the screen and sharing every single card back to some other player. And all you need for that is either access directly to the computer or to just send a virus over to be installed on that computer. So that would be a more likely way of kind of accessing that data. And there's no way just by doing investigations like this, we could kind of figure that out. You'd have to be there. And I think Hochstetler's kind of doing the right steps now to bring on a cybersecurity team to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate depiction. Basically what we want to try to get to is the point of making this system as trustless as possible, or at least having a lot of protection at the point of trust, ensuring that we have methods that we can then double check there after the fact to see if they've been breached. Do you, from a software or hardware standpoint, do you see any easy solutions to this sort of vulnerability?
Yeah, and I don't want to kind of turn this into an advertisement or anything, but I think that's kind of what we've been focused on from day one in a way, right? And I think the biggest thing is the action tracker itself. If you look at the system that we're building now, right, the way we solve this problem is by making everything integrated. You have the computer is mounted underneath the table. That's wired directly to the RFID readers. The cameras are directly connected to the computer as well, and the entire stream and all that data is collected on the computer locally and only sent out after the delay. Now, we can't really do that with the current manually tracked systems because you need someone to manually type in the bets. The best you can do is have it wired into another room and just hope that no one's kind of bypassing that connection, right? And that itself should be very secure, but I think you kind of brought it up last time, right? And I'm happy Andrew kind of went and removed that feature where you can go and remotely connect, but you still have the ability as a commentator to remotely connect. And there's a lot of other ways, right? Through NDI cameras. I saw someone's thread on Twitter kind of bringing that up, where you can connect to cameras over the network. That's not really an issue, but it does allow a path to go and connect to the computers, right? So I think that overall there's kind of a lot of issues with having a system where everything has separate moving parts and you're designing it for every single thing. I think by having the entire system in one location, all wired, and none of that data even available. Like our next system we're planning to do is actually make it so until the hand is over, it's actually disconnected from the Wi-Fi. And once the hand ends, it connects through Ethernet, not through Wi-Fi, but it connects to the network, sends that data, sends the live stream footage, and then switches it off during the next hand. And it just does that. Every hand, it just sends the data out. And that way you don't have to worry about any kind of these vulnerabilities.
Yeah, my understanding is that there are companies that are currently doing this. I think Poker Stars, and then who are you working with Party Poker, Melissa? Sharehand, yeah. I believe that the way their systems are set up is very similar, where everything is then put together in the cloud. So the graphics don't actually appear until a beat later, and you're pulling it from cloud data at that point rather than real time.
Yeah, that's definitely doable, but I think majority of card rooms that are kind of doing this today, they can't afford that kind of setup for that system, and it's way too much over. And that itself has a lot of security things you have to worry about, right? I think like what Poker Go hired, I think it's called Final Table. You can look at this up online. It's a whole company built to design this technology for Poker Go Studio, right?
Yep.
And they've been able to do that because they have a full dedicated engineering team to do that. I don't think places like Hustler or even the majority of the smaller card rooms that I've seen running these streams don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, 100%. So that's, we bring up Stars or we bring up Sharehand, but like these are major companies that are building custom, right? And that's why we always spoke to the fact that like custom greater than out of the box, because it can be really streamlined to your needs, and specifically when those needs are security, that can take a big onus. I guess one last question with regard to what you said, using RFID chips and eliminating the action tracker. What exactly about the action tracker is vulnerable? Because my understanding was the action tracker, so the person actually tracking the action gets no info. They don't see cards, they just see who's been dealt in. And then they actually track the action via, discussing with the dealer, hearing the dealer talk, whatever. And then that information sent out encrypted back to the server. So where's the breach?
Tracker, that's ideally how it should work. I don't think that's how it works right now, because they actually show the cards to the action tracker to make sure that at the end of the hands the cards are read correctly. That's why a lot of the times you'll see a card's not read, but then they'll add it in later after checking the antenna to see.
So I can correct that. I can correct you a little bit on that. That's actually not true. What happens is if a card is red, it's blue, and if a card or a player's hand is not red, it's just gray. So what's happening is two-way communication between the person doing the action tracking and the dealer, where they can say like, player 2's cards are not being read. Can you rub them over the whatever? But they actually never do get that info. However, as I'm speaking out loud, I do understand why you pointed this out. It's because what happened in Stones was the person tracking the action was in the same room as the server, so they could just see, right? They didn't have to communicate with the dealer.
I know that GFX, and I'm guessing Hustler, a lot of these places probably switch this off, but what I've seen in some card rooms use is there's a feature where you can go in, if the card's not read correctly, you can get a list that shows each antenna and what cards are being read, and you can go and see, okay, there seems to be a 5 of clubs near antenna 7, let me go put that on seat 7. So that is a possibility. I'm sure that there's a way to turn it off or put a passcode or something like that. I don't know the full inner workings of GFX. I just think that it's a bad way to handle that in general.
Yeah, I would have to reconfirm that, because to my knowledge, it's not that specific. It's just that something's missing. But you could be correct in that, he was trying to be helpful to the person tracking the action. Obviously, it's
either way. I think the overlays are also kind of input on there. Now, I don't know if the overlays are shown after the 15 minutes, or they can see the overlays kind of showing up live. Because I know the action trackers also have the ability to hide and show the overlays if something's going wrong. So
yes, yeah. When you're saying the overlays, you mean like the VPIP percentage, the race first in, that type of stuff.
The cards as well. It's all one system.
He's saying the graphics.
The graphical overlay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I see. Yeah, that usually is the production team, right? So whoever's handling the actual stream broadcast itself is pulling that from the server. So this is something slightly different, but also a point of vulnerability potentially. If they're doing that in real time, then that's another whole team that has real time info, right? So even if nobody's in the in the server room, if you have your production, because this is how we do it, we do no delay, obviously. So production gets everything real time. They're getting the information from the server in real time in graphical form, and if any one of them are breached, obviously they could just communicate that to whoever, and
and I think the data from the table to the computer is the other side, right, where that's always going to be happening in real time in location, and that's something that people have kind of missed out on, a possible scenario, right, where the information coming from those readers into the computer, it's even if it's just showing if a card's there or not, it's showing the actual values because there's no computer in the table.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Two other things that I guess you could shine a little light on. First being network vulnerabilities. This is an area that I've kind of been beating my chest about, or beating the drum on a little bit over the last few days, where I think it's incredibly critical that there are cyber teams in place to handle network securities. And I think oftentimes in these stream houses, either they don't exist at all because the room is very small, or it's a scenario like Hustler where they're just entrusting that to the casino to oversee. Can you talk a little bit about the network's involvement and why the vulnerabilities are a problem?
Yeah, here are my kind of thoughts on that, right? There's one side of it is that if you were to cheat, you would need a lot of experts to kind of come and take advantage of the network. So that ends up being one of the hardest things to to attack, but that is also one of the hardest things for card rooms to make sure they're getting right? Because that's the one thing that GFX has no control of. No systems like that right now where do you have full control of the network unless you're building it for that specific room. I'll kind of give you an example where if you walk into a card room, some places will use the action tracking system on the same internet line, same routers as the rest of the room. Some places will have a separate internet line. Some places will just have separate routers and modems, but they're used as a gateway. There's just a million different factors that could be taking place, and each of these nodes in the system ends up being a vulnerability. And if I were someone who's trying to come and take advantage of that, you can easily access the packets and the data that are being routed either from the table to the production computer, or from the production computer to the delayed computer, or even from that to the stream. There are just a million different situations where this could be happening. And on top of that, if you add, I think GFX has the ability to show and control from a tablet. I know a lot of card rooms do that. A lot of the poker tours where they come and make traveling live streaming setups end up doing that, where you have a tablet which is wirelessly connected and you can go and mark things. Obviously, you can't see the cards directly in there, but if data is being passed through there, there's always the possibility that there is a way to access that data en route to that in real time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do want to be clear that some of this would require a pretty high level of sophistication on the cheating side of things, and that's what's allowing us to basically feel pretty comfortable operating as is. But we have to also acknowledge as a community that the more that we incentivize this cheating, because there's more at risk, and having perfect information is just worth so fucking much, the more we need to be critical from the security side and not just do simple things that kind of pass the optics test of getting better. And I guess that's the one of the final things that I kind of want to end on. I'll lead in with this, but I really want to get your thoughts on like what protocols stream houses can put into place moving forward. But prior to that, can you give me your thoughts on wands and metal detectors as far as security measures go?
I think it's funny your kind of response to that, and especially the Garrett written across the wands.
Sure.
But I mean, it obviously it can kind of help ensure that there's no metallic devices or RFID enabled devices on themselves. But then again, like kind of going to your last point, right? I don't think it's any easier to build a water bottle that can read the cards than it is to just write a Trojan horse that's installed on the computer in the back room, right? Or some way to kind of connect to the network in between. Now, obviously, I don't know how Hustler works, but I would just go to a smaller card room that isn't worrying about any of this stuff and go through that rather than building a water ball and doing this whole sophisticated scenario. So, yeah, the wands are just, I think, more of a public thing than a publicity thing than a actual security measure. But honestly, any steps to go in the right direction helps.
Yeah, I'm a little bit less forgiving. I think that these, I worry when I see these public acts taking place because it distracts us from the things that really need to be changed, which is a lot of the back-end security, all of the vulnerable points that we were talking about along the way with the network, with the server itself. There are many points of vulnerability throughout these systems as they're created. And as we spoke, most people who start stream houses aren't aware of them. They kind of just assume it's an out-of-the-box solution that's already secure, and they only look at it at a surface level. So I get nervous when I see nonsense like wanding, and also I just know how this works. Like you get lax with it, right? So you're gonna wand me on my way in. I'm gonna go take a piss and not get wanded on the way back, or something of that nature. It's a lot of theatrics, in my opinion. It doesn't really prevent anything. If all the person really needs is to be signaled, and everything else is happening on the back end or through a third party who's able to get real information and then signal you, you can certainly find non-metallic things that will do that. Bone conducting headphones or microchipped headphones, whatever. There are plenty of things that can surpass this system, and it just seems like a lot of nonsense to me. So let's let you leave on this. From your opinion as somebody who is working and creating these systems, who's heavily invested in the success of these streaming card rooms, and a poker advocate yourself, what, from a secure standpoint, specifically on the back end, what protocols can be implemented for stream houses to become safer? And then what protocols, in your opinion, from an IT standpoint, can be implemented to handle any scenarios like this where there may be a breach in place?
Yeah, I think for the card room specifically, I think that it should be, at this point, if you have already invested in one of these systems, I think it's your duty to kind of go back and talk to the manufacturers, the creators of the cards, the the people who set up your network, people who set up the table, and kind of figure out every single aspect of how it works, right? Where are the leaks, and kind of ask them all the right questions. I think a lot of these manufacturers are going to start changing their process and start talking to these card rooms. And I think there should be a protocol on, hey, what standard are you using for your network? Are you using any wireless networks? Is there any place from the AT&T line all the way to the cards where there's a wireless network being taken place, right? I think that's the first step, and I think that's just something simple that everyone can do. The reason why I kind of first wrote out the article and put out there was because I think that players should also be made aware of this, because the players should go back, and if you regularly play on one of these live streams, you should be asking the production team to look into this and make sure that they're doing their duty to figure that out. On the IT side and the computers and the system side, I think obviously I'm kind of biased because we have our own system, but I'm always going to push for having an integrated system. I've probably said that word 100 times during this whole thing, but
yeah,
I think that it's very, very hard to build a system without vulnerabilities if you don't own it from the card all the way to the software, all the way to the stream. If you have full control of all these parts and you put that in the hands of the company building it and not in the hands of the card room, it ends up being easier for the players, easier for the card rooms to trust. And I think that pushes the game forward, because people won't be going around thinking, hey, could it be this? Could it be this? If a situation like this happened, they would immediately go to the company that created it and said, where are all the security flaws and how could this be possible? And how can you update all of your tables, not just one or two setups?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's very critical. Yeah. And I guess it's not very fair for me to ask you like what they should do if a potential threat occurs as far as like shutting down the stream and things of that nature. That's a lot more on the production side of things, and maybe a question for somebody like Maury. But really appreciate your insight on all of this. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and read Maanit's article today. I think that he does a great job of summarizing all of these issues that we face and why it's important that we pay attention to it while we are. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you so much. Where can people find you on social?
Yeah, you can just see on Twitter, Maanit M30, or look up RF Labs, RF Poker. But yeah, thank you guys. I think it's great, the work you guys and Joey Ingram, everyone's kind of doing in the community to kind of go and investigate and do your own diligence. I think it's important. And with all the RFID information you have now, we're actually hiring. So we have a job for you, Berkey, if you're ever looking for one.
Honestly,
there
man.
was somebody in chat who said that they wanted to work with you, so maybe they'll hit you up.
Yeah, you might have to.
Awesome.
You might have to go back through and scroll. You have employees here. Yeah, no, really appreciate the work that you're doing. I'll not that I want to work for you, but I will talk to you on the side. I have some ideas that I'd like to kick around. I've kind of spoken with Andrew as well. I think that there's meat on the bone and there's a need to be filled that I think both of your expertise could come in handy. On that note, though, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much, guys. If you haven't already, give Maanit a follow. Check out RF Labs. That's his new software and hardware that he's launching as far as Poker RFID goes. We appreciate you so much. Thank you,
Thanks,
my man.
Maanit.
Thanks, Maanit.
Yeah, thanks.
See you later. That was good.
I would trust him with to watch my kids.
Your kids.
Yes. Are those the rats in the freezer?
No, it's the snake and the dog.
That is very interesting. How he said that like the computer, everything is just right there at the table, and then it just like that information doesn't get sent anywhere else. It just essentially goes up to the cloud and then out. So that would be that would definitely solve a lot of problems for sure.
Yeah.
Turning it off until after the hand is pretty cool.
Say what?
Turning it off until after the hand.
Yeah, the upgrade that he said they're working on.
Yeah.
That does offer that actually is a layer of protection that's really it's so sharp.
Yeah, it's next level.
It's a real-time 30-second delay maybe. That you're running the stream on a delay anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't give a shit.
No, right.
The only actually no, I don't even know that that's true. I was going to say the only issue that you might have is that with production they may struggle to know what cameras to be on. But so long as there's still just something highlighting where the action is, I think that like from a production standpoint, like no issues at all. And that's a pretty sharp fix.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope that helped clarify a lot of the things that I've been speaking on. I know that I don't always get my point across in the best way, but I think Maanit is very versed in what he's talking about. He's an actual developer of the software and hardware, whereas I'm just kind of translating the things that I've learned and been told throughout the years, utilizing this type of stuff. So, I wanted to just basically kind of bring us full circle as far as like what the leading thoughts of innocence or guilt are whenever it comes to this current scandal that we're dealing with. And I think from the she's innocent side, obviously the one that makes the most sense is that she just misread her hand. I think we've all kind of accepted that if this hand were just true, then she almost certainly had to believe she had Jack 3. Like, it's really difficult to believe she had Jack 4. But if she were cheating, I think the leading thoughts there are that it's either an inside job where somebody was feeding her perfect information through some sort of signaling device, or just that she may have only cheated this exact hand, and that potentially her relationship with Rip was one where there was collusion taking place or something of that nature. But I do think a lot of the high-tech ideas of how she was potentially cheating the system are very, very low probability, extremely low probability. And I think that they create more noise than signal. Yeah. And that becomes a problem because then we start rabbit holing down the what ifs and the hows, where
it becomes very conspiratorial.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, which is difficult to prove.
Mm-hmm.
And it has us looking for smoking guns that are unlikely to exist. And also, I
think a lot of brain power is wasted.
It detracts from the bigger point.
That's how I feel, because I'm like, I'm not even, and I like looking into stuff, but for this, I just feel like there's just not enough information out there. So I'm not going to waste my mental energy like spinning wheels when it's not going to lead to any conclusive.
My fucking wheels
answer.
are spinning. I know it's not going to lead to any fucking
It seems like a waste.
Conrad has wasted way too much brain power.
I know it's not going to lead to any fucking
literally
conclusive
just like
answer.
some weird masturbation that's like procrastinating.
This sounds way too logical from you. Haven't you presented
rude? First of all,
well, not that you're not.
Second of all,
well, listen, not that you're not a logical person, but that you're a person who likes conspiracy theories. Haven't we had this talk?
Yeah, but it's more so that like I get annoyed when I see like a lot of heated debates happening based on very limited information when like it's not going to lead to anywhere.
Right. So like when you go down the conspiracy theory rabbit
I'm not
hole, you watch a doc.
Right.
You're not watching Twitter.
And I'm like, that could be interesting. But instead, I'm seeing people go back and forth and then just dig deeper into their sides when no one really knows.
Oh yeah. So
it's just like, what are we doing here? You guys are arguing for sport.
Here's why you're not sucked in yet. You're still on Twitter. That was last week. You got to get on Reddit.
I've been on Reddit.
Reddit has really honed in on each conspiracy.
The more I read, the more sillier this all seems.
Well, you got to pick one. You got to pick a conspiration that you really want to go down the rabbit hole on, and you'll find a thread that will take you to the depths of hell.
That, and I get grabbed by conspiracies. I thought there was possibility Astroworld was a demonic presentation.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think this one is just not grabbing me. I just find it
fucking KL.
Hold on.
You just saw that now?
What happened?
In the chat, KL said, for those of you guys who don't know, KL Highlands High Hands 89 Cleaton is wheelchair. He's wheelchair bound. He said, at Conrad Simpson's wheel spinning ? Join the club.
Dude, did you guys see his tweet earlier today?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Oh man,
it was fucking great.
He said,
it was Joe Ingram. It said, where do we stand? And he goes, well, I guess Ingram's canceled. And then like underlined stand. I was dying. I was absolutely dying.
Self-deprecation. It's really the best humor out there.
Is.
Love you,
Please continue, Melissa. Conrad rudely interrupted.
I don't really know what else I was going to say.
Where can you go from there?
Whatever.
Sorry.
God damn it.
He said fucking wheels spin and join the club. What do you want me to do? I just can't help myself. I'm crying. I'm literally in fucking tears.
Oh, Connie. Connie. I mean, I think like where we're at now, Melissa's point's very valid in the sense that a lot of the conversation taking place is the masses just picking a side and shouting. I do think that there are some well-intended people that are on both sides of the fence that have amplified platforms and kind of speaking just to probabilistic thinking, right? Like less so to
Yeah, but even then, those are smart people. Go use your energy somewhere else where you can actually get something done.
Well, it is important if we could get to the root of this.
I don't think you're gonna get to the root of it unless more information comes out. That's the thing.
But this is how more information comes out. That's the point, right? If we just leave it alone, nothing else.
People have been sleuthing the internet all over the place, and they're just spinning their wheels.
So you've conclusively decided there's no more information to gain.
As of right now, I feel like we would have seen if there's something else to see.
I don't know about that, man.
Yeah.
Like things like this, you have to compile things. Like it's I don't know.
Compile what?
Like just actions and like.
I mean,
there's a lot of points
the thing is like if something did occur, oftentimes people get sussed out, people get smoked out, and don't get me wrong, like this might just occur might come to conclusion from Hustler's investigation. Like they might just be doing all the heavy lifting on that. But I don't think it's like completely out of the realm of possibility.
I'm not saying that she didn't cheat or did cheat.
No,
I'm just
I understand
saying
that.
I think it's a waste of time. Like there's so much time and energy that has gone into like spinning wheels and it's like nothing is able to be concluded because there's not enough information. It has to be like, oh, I found this new piece of information, not like, oh, well, based on this, what if? And then it just gets further and further into like conspiracy land.
Yeah. I mean, I think Jamin made a good point in chat. He said the work right now is mainly to get to conclusion adjacent. And I think largely that's because we're looking at an isolated incident. Like we're trying to explain or come to a conclusion based off of
right, and it's not enough.
Yeah, I'm not ready to say anything that definitive. I think that if I think if there are like past experiences with the characters at play,
that's what I'm saying. That would be different if something more came out. But like when I just see people arguing over the same information that we've had for days, that's like
right. But
no conclusion's been able to come from it. Then people are just doing this tribalism thing where they're in camps fighting against each other.
No, that for sure
is just a waste of time.
That for sure 100% is happening. It is 100% a waste of time. But you're also pretty limited in your scope. Like there's a lot that's coming out elsewhere about like the potential ties that these two have, and why a lot of the inconsistencies in the speech that's out there makes logical sense to be inconsistent or congruent to a lie. Basically like their backgrounds are not necessarily as stated and things like that. And that again doesn't lead to guilt. It just leads to fraudulence and a lot of inconsistencies in the things that we're supposed to believe to be truths.
Yeah, but I'm sure you could say that about a lot of people that play on that show.
Yeah, probably true.
So it sort of like doesn't mean anything. That's what I'm just like, nothing has convinced me. That's it. I mean, it's not like I'm not the be all end all. I'm just, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I agree with most of that. Wrapping up today's show, I do want to give attention again to the Susie Zhao coverage. So again, writer Jen on Twitter, Jennifer Newell is covering the story very closely today. Wrapped early, getting into the logistics of what took place. Apparently, there's a Zoom webinar, I guess, that will allow you to watch
the trial. Yeah,
the trial.
She posted it, I believe. She tweeted it, the link to
it.
Yeah,
she tweeted. So they're done for the day, and they reconvene Friday. But for anybody who wants to follow this more closely, you can, I think, watch that link and pay a lot closer attention. There's a lot of, I imagine, imagery and video evidence that we can't show, or it's at least not being leaked to the public. So first update she put out was trial day 3 lunch update. Mr. and Mrs. Patel, owners of the Sherwood Motel, testified that the defendant rented the room rented room 7 at 9:26 p.m. on July 12th, 2020. Mrs. Patel did it, but Mr. Patel wouldn't have, because defendant was on the do not rent list because he previously left trash in rooms. So she was unaware of that, apparently. The defense tried to object to the defendant's trash. How much was it? How many trips to the dumpster? Did he destroy things? And asked, do you rent by the hour? The prosecutor objected to relevancy. Defense shut up. The audio expert testified that the car on the home cam near the park entrance was the make model of the defendant's car. The defense questioned his ability to recognize the car. It didn't work. Brienne Wyrick testified to her and her fiance calling the defendant for 1:45 a.m. ride on July 13th. Took him 45 minutes to arrive. Went to gas station to get ATM cash. Paid defendant for the ride after he took them home. The defense went hard on her, questioning her memory because she had a substance abuse problem at the time, implied she needs money to buy drugs, tried to ask if she was on crack, but prosecutor objected. Defense admitted he was trying to discredit her. Finally, the FBI special agent George Runerth begins explaining cell phone analysis, his specialty, that he used the defendant's phone, Susie's 2 phones, and Susie's Gmail account to explain this evidence. So it looks like they got a lot more into the nitty-gritty today. Just looking a little bit further for the end of day updates.
Sounds like they're trying to put a timeline together of where the defendant was leading up to the incident.
Yeah, and it seems as though day 3 ended abruptly. The attorneys were asked to approach the bench. The jury was dismissed. She confirmed that the break continued, and then she put a timeline up herself. So another piece of information, this is pretty key. Between July 2nd and July 29th, there were 382 searches and 1,915 web addresses visited for the most vile brutality upon women, including Asian, kidnap, force, slave, crying, extreme, brutal, and others I won't type. So apparently they got the browser history as we were talking about from the FBI, and he was just very honed in on gathering information for the brutal act that did ultimately occur. So this does seem like it was, or at least it's coming together, that this was premeditated. No real shock there. Still unclear of the relationship between he and Susie and why it was exactly her. As you know, those terms are specific, but they're still generic in nature. She just fit a profile, it appears. I'm wondering if there are any ties between poker and this guy, gambling, or if there was something else going on behind the scenes that we were unaware of that would link the two of them together. I'm sure this will come out throughout the days. But again, I want to stay on top of this. I don't want people to forget the brutal things that happened to Susie Zhao. She was one of our community, or one of the members of our community. I think it's very important for us to, see her get her justice.
Absolutely.
And remind everybody of the despicable act that occurred. So I hate to end the show on a downer every day.
I know, yeah, we got to structure it a little different.
Well, I mean, I feel like if I bring it in any sooner,
no, I know.
It's just a real buzzkill.
I mean, hopefully the end result is that we do get justice for Susie.
Yep.
So that's the bright spot that we're leading towards.
Right. I do want to give another shout out to Faded Spade, our sponsor of the week. Reminder that code ONLYFRIENDS gives you 15% off their new 3.0 playing cards at fadedspade.com. See our YouTube show description for direct links. Also, a quick reminder that we do have an academy coming up in February 2nd to the 5th. That's a Poker Out Loud style academy for anybody who is interested in playing in a live venue similar to the Poker Out Loud games that you see on Solve4Why TV. Join the academy. You can head to academy.solve4why.io to get more information or sign up today.
It's Groundhog Day.
Not today. Not today, the day of the academy. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Maanit, for joining us and giving us an expert detailed analysis of RFID technology and how these systems work. We appreciate you guys as always. I'm out tomorrow and Friday.
Good luck, Bert.
Melissa and Christian will be leading the way. Tortoise and Conrad always here on the. Look at
Shin
Conrad.
doesn't
Man.
show up, there's gonna be a punishment.
Oh,
I haven't decided what yet.
okay.
Show up.
Punishment pending.
Definitely.
Can we just get a quick close up on Conrad?
The rabbi?
Look at him. He is so focused and intent on whatever it is that he's looking at.
He's on Reddit.
He's on Reddit and he's wearing
a rabbit hole right now.
He's on Reddit and he's wearing a fedora. He's wearing a fedora and he's on Reddit. This
Yep.
is a new.
I'm wearing a bucket hat and I'm not wearing a fedora.
It looks like a fedora.
I mean, like,
Because you put the brim up. I see.
yeah. At this point, like, he doesn't even have a neck. He's so like zoned in on whatever the fuck it is he's looking at. Like,
He's deep.
I got
He
a
goes
conspiracy,
deep.
man. I got a conspiracy. I'm
He's
not
built-
sharing it at the moment, but I got a conspiracy
my
going
Building
on.
the show out for tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah,
And I'm looking.
All right. Who would have thought that I would turn into the conspiracy debunker?
Of course. Hey, we
Really
need.
shocking turn of events. I don't
here's
know
the
what
thing.
has happened here. We have Berkey up till 4 a.m. looking at this woman's hip and
Well,
zooming
that's
in
nothing new.
and arguing and debating with Chin about it. Meanwhile, it's 7 a.m. where Chin is. And then, I'm here debunking conspiracy theories. The whole world is upside down.
Here's the thing. I just wake up. I say the 10 conspiracy theories and I debunk them all within fucking seconds. And then I start again. It's like the most absurd thing. But I am in on one right now. I just gotta find more information.
All right.
Well, hey, you do God's work out
I'll be
there.
out here.
Start to compile show notes for tomorrow so that we can have a nice ease run of show while I'm away. And I'm looking forward to it, Conrad. I will be tuning in.
God help us all.
I'll tell you that right now. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific. As always, we're out.
Peace.
Later.